Thoughts are racing, spinning fast. Ideas flow but never last. Waves of wonder, thoughts untamed. Nothing ever stays the same. Rambling on, no straight lines. Welcome to my busy mind. Questions, answers, here they go. Digging deeper, let's start the show.
Welcome to Ramblings of a Busy Mind, episode 16 with Martha Burich, and I knew I would do that. I always slaughter last names. That's the German, because in Germany we would say Burich. And Martha is a coach, parenting advisor, college professor. You name it. You do it. You tell people who you are.
Well, thank you very much, Natasha. I'm so happy to be here. Yes, I was a child psychology professor for 10 years and a high school special education teacher for 16. I wrote the book, Yes, You Can Raise Happy, Responsible Children, which is endorsed by Jack Canfield himself, Chicken Soup for the Soul. Jack said this book has the potential to transform the lives of families worldwide. And I know Jack's right because the information in that book transformed the life of my family because my son was so spoiled when he was younger. Because why? Because I suffered from the disease too many parents suffer from today. We don't know how to say no to our children. And people who don't learn to accept no for an answer become adults who are very, very unpleasant.
And that leads me to the question, because most people think about burnout in relation to work, but there's burnout in families, right? There's burnout in relationships. So what contributed to you not being able to say no?
Well, my husband and I believe that the way that you raise a happy child is you say no as little as possible. You let them have their way. And we learned a little bit too late that no, that's not how it works. And also, we were kind of spoiled ourselves, big kids ourselves. And rather than put our foot down and have boundaries and make our son follow them, we would give in. If he started, kicked up a fuss or whatever, oh, okay. We would say, no, you can't have that toy. Then he'd have a big fit, and oh, okay. Just to pretty much get it, get out of here, kid. You bug me. Get him off our backs. And because it was unpleasant having to deal with that. So we would just give him his way. Well, of course, what did that do? That made everybody miserable. And he was the most miserable one because children who run their households are very insecure because they know, wait, there's nobody here to protect me. If I'm in charge, what about when I need help? So, and they understand that at a deep down level at a very young age. So we had to grow, my husband and I had to grow up. We had to stop being big kids. And you know what? I think that's pretty typical, Natasha. We all grow up when we have children, and you'll hear that so many times. The baby was on its way, and we had to stop our partying ways. We had to stop this. Yes, and mature people say that and do that. Mature people, but we still, through our children, we still live out our own childhoods, and we deal with a lot of the things that made us unhappy as children. And I think that was part of my husband's and my problem is, well, we got told no so often, we didn't want our child to suffer like we did.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted his life to be easier.
And life without boundaries is not a stressless life, as far
Oh,
as I
no.
know, right?
No, 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 not at all.
So how did you switch from not saying no to saying no and setting boundaries? How easy was that? How stressful was that?
Oh, well, it's a really good question. I took a parenting class, and it was, I think it was 8 weeks, 1 hour a week, and it was very structured. We're working on this week. We're working on this technique the next week. And I said to myself, you know what? Things are so bad at our house, as long as they aren't telling me to hurt my child or to, insult my child and be sarcastic, I'm going to do whatever they tell me because they're telling me that this works and I'm going to do it. So every week I would do whatever it is they told me. And of course, Anthony had pushback. Oh my goodness. Oh goodness. One day I had to lock myself in the bathroom because he just would not leave me alone. But anyway, I just continue. I said to myself, these people said this works. it's going to work. And I held my ground. I stayed firm. And guess what? It worked. And every week we would go back and they would say, how did it work? And I would say, wow, this stuff really works. But these other parents were like, nah, I tried it. It didn't work. And I kept thinking to myself, why isn't it working for them? And it finally occurred to me, they were not doing what they were told.
Hmm.
They would try once, the child would push back, and they were like my husband and I, early on. Oh, get out of here, kid, you bug me. Oh, just here.
Hmm.
Just here, have your way. Just leave me alone. Stop having a tantrum. Stop being in pain. And then nobody learns anything when we give in.
Hmm. I hear that. Um, so would you recommend that when people are when parents are in stress and they don't know where to go to, like to find support, find a class or to find something that they can actually apply then in their life?
Well, oh, definitely. And information is everywhere. I have my own Facebook group, Mastering Child Behavior. There's plenty of free information there. You can go anywhere on the internet and find information. The two things that are most important to me is number one, never hit a child. I would not hit an animal. I'd never hit a child, and because it doesn't teach them anything. Who makes mistakes? People who do things. Who makes the most mistakes? People who do new and different things. Well, children are constantly that's their entire lives are learning new things, and of course they're going to make mistakes. Let me tell you a story. When I was a child psychology professor, one of my students had a 2-year-old son, and he put his shoes in the microwave. And she said to me, I said, "Oh dear, what'd you do?" And she goes, "I spanked him." I said, "What? You spanked him? Why'd you spank him?" She said, "He did a bad thing." I said, "He has seen you put 100 things in that microwave that have nothing to do with food. How does he know that what he did was wrong?" What you've basically just told him is don't experiment, be afraid that you're going to make a mistake. And now you've restricted him rather than even sitting him down and saying, "Sweetheart, we don't put those in the microwave." That could be a problem. Rather than explaining, you punished him, and now he'll be less likely to try new things. He'll be afraid. And the same thing with me. Let's say when I was learning piano, if my teacher would have yelled at me every time I made a mistake on the piano, I wouldn't have been able to play a single song. I'd have been too afraid to make a mistake. But she did do this. I tried to cheat. I tried to put numbers on the keys instead of learning how to read music. And she took all the letters, all the numbers off the keys one day, and she goes, "You're not going to do that. You're not going to cheat. You're going to learn to read music." And I did.
How was your upbringing in your family? How was it very harmonic or was it more stressful or because sometimes our youth reflects on what we do in our later life. And I'm just wondering how your life before child and as child led to what happened with child.
What's really interesting is I have an older brother. He's 7 years older than I am. And we've been talking a lot. And he had like this idyllic upbringing. He talks about how, oh my goodness, my life was so great. I would go on base and they would teach me things when I had my paper route. The doctors would invite me into the hospital and show me x-rays. And and I would go into car mechanics and they would show me how they fix this. He lived an entirely different life than I did.
Hmm.
I was absolutely miserable. I had no friends. I thought I was just the most useless human being on the face of the earth. And most of it had nothing to do with anything anybody did or said to me. It was all everything how I interpreted everything in my own mind. Every time I looked at my brothers, I thought, "Oh, I'm nothing compared to them." Now, part of that is because I was in an Italian family where girls are not appreciated the way boys are. And I even asked my mother one time, I said, "Mom, how come I do all the housework and Billy and Al don't do any work?" And she goes, "They're boys."
Hmm.
So, some of this wasn't totally my making things up. Some of it was definitely my upbringing. But my mother did love me and she cared for me, even though I was unwanted because when she was pregnant, my dad drank and gambled all the
Mhm.
money away, and my mother was worried about how she was going to feed the two children she had. And then here I was on the way. How am I going to feed this baby? So I always had that, I don't know, in the back of my mind. My mother told me what a good baby I was. And I think it was because I knew in the back of my mind my mother really couldn't handle all that. She was a
You
very, very
you
competent
basically
woman.
already got your mother's stress when you were in utero.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
there you
yeah,
go. Yes,
yeah.
yes. And she was a very competent woman. But also, what happened to my mother was she was made to quit eighth grade so that she could go to work to make money so my uncles could get college educations. Because my grandfather said a woman doesn't need a job, she needs a
Mm.
husband.
Hmm. So both of your parents were Italian?
My mother was Italian and my father was American.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Italian families are sometimes different. I grew up like 3 hours drive from us. You hit the Italian border, basically.
Um,
Um, I never saw it in the friends that we had that the sons were more or the girl, but I was a child myself, so I would probably not have recognized it because we had quite a few Italian friends and family. And uh but the thing is too, the way you grew up, like I was the oldest in the family and I had to fight for everything that I wanted. My brother would throw a temper tantrum and get everything he wanted. And I was always the one giving in,
mm,
right? So it's very interesting when you look back at your uh family dynamics as a child. My father always said you are addicted to harmony. I didn't like fights. I didn't like I wanted people to be happy. Um which meant when I was angry or when I was upset with something, I would throw a fit, run out the door, go up in my room, smash the door, and then come back because then it was done. Well, my brother kept it for days and weeks and ages. And,
wow. So
yeah.
yeah, you had an explosive and let it go, but he just held on to it. Sometimes, do you think part of that is female male? I think sometimes women, I've read a lot and I see it in a lot of instances. Women want peace. We just want, you know what? Let's just
Well,
have
the
peace so
thing
we
is
can
that
live.
I'm easily expressing my emotions.
Ah,
Sometimes people say too much. Tears come easy,
mm,
even watching cartoons. Uh, but the thing is that I'd rather have them out than stuck in me.
yeah, yes.
And my brother was never, same as my father, both of them were never good in expressing their emotions
Mm-hmm.
or in dealing with emotions to the point that my brother said to me, I cannot talk to you, you're crying. I said, why? Don't I listen? And he said, no, I cannot talk. So he couldn't deal with my tears,
Ah,
right? And that's interesting again when you look back and being like then being the grown up supposedly sometimes I'm not but the thing is that you look back at what happened in family dynamics and the things that stuck with you as a child and how they come back in later life and how they influence what you do in later life. And I think part of that stress is too, my mom got divorced when I was 6, my brother was 5.
mm-hmm.
um, and she was working her butt off to get us through, right? And that installed, I don't know if that installed it, but the thing is too, then you get to the point that you have to provide, you have to get the money in, and you see your mom being stressed about all the things. And I'm more like my grandmother. My grandmother was a successful businesswoman, one of the first women being a sales rep for at her time she was selling fabrics,
Mm-hmm.
like accessories, whatever, and she made good money, but she was a very honest salesperson. She would always go and talk to everybody. She would tell everybody and never lie. My mom is the same. She was a sales rep for pharmaceuticals. So somehow down the line, it's in there that we try to cater to people and try to please people and help people to get to where they need to the point that you do that then like me in work and you're trying to do everything that you can to please, uh, yeah, in my case it was Siemens, like do more than you should do because you know you're exhausted, and still you go in and you do that extra mile, and nobody cares,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. And I think with kids, it's the same thing. Is if you install in them a healthy um, respect for boundaries, be that their own or be that somebody else's, then their life becomes easier because they're not going to be in conflict all the time,
Mm.
right? But
That
at
would
the
be
same
nice.
time, if expectations become too much, then you're back to you're putting them in stress.
You know what I've been noticing lately is I think a lot of parents pity their children, and it's kind of a new phenomenon now. Every child's labeled something, attention deficit, or Asperger's, or a little of this, a little of that. I mean, I was on. Someone told me that let's see, her husband was autistic, and she was, I forgot what it was. I guess attention deficit. And I remember thinking to myself that something's not adding up here, because she was very competent and they had, a lovely family. But I think it's just the thing now that we're all labeled. I have anxiety. You hear people talking about, I have anxiety. Oh, okay, all right.
The
Work
thing
still
when
needs to be done. Okay, we have anxiety. We go back 100 years when most people had farms, so 100, more than 100 years. People didn't have time to have anxiety. They had to get up, milk the cows, feed the chickens, take care of the baby, make the breakfast, and if something terrible happened, they had to deal with it then. They didn't have time to have anxiety and to be
it,
afraid or
not
whatever.
not only that, at that time it would have been called worries.
Okay, good. Oh,
I'm worrying about something. Everybody worries
yeah,
about something, more
right.
or
Yeah,
less, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
your life is not always going smooth. We know that things happen that are beyond your control. Um, but the question is, and I find it might sound bad, but I find those labels are putting you in a box that is so comfortable that you don't have to get out,
Oh,
right?
that's a
And if you
yeah.
if you're not in that box, for me it was okay, I burnout, but the burnout was for me a stepping stone because I can relate to other mental health issues or
Mhm,
challenges. I can relate to what's going on in them. I had it, maybe just a tiny bit, but I had it. But the thing is, for me, and that's why I went away from the burnout survivor to
mhm,
the burnout recovery guide, because I'm not stuck as a burnout survivor. I'm helping you to get further. It doesn't matter that I survived burnout. Yes, I lived it. I use my knowledge and what I learned during that time. But I don't want to be stuck with that burnout survivor because then I'm stuck in a place where I'm not moving anywhere else.
right, exactly. And
And
people have come back from absolutely horrific upbringings and things in their backgrounds. I mean, let's talk about POWs, prisoners of war, and other things. Yet they came back after unimaginable hardship, cruelties, and lived normal lives. Many of them came back and lived normal lives, had families, and were decent human beings.
yeah,
So to say that, this happened to me is an excuse for me to not be who I need to be and to be the best person I can be. And this constant, that's why I have anxiety. I'm this, I'm that. I
yeah,
can't,
and
I
it's
can't,
it's
I can't.
also it's also a cop out from people who deal with others, because when I give somebody a label,
Hmm.
I can again keep them in that box, and I can excuse anything they do or can justify anything I do with them by keeping them in that label. I
Hmm.
found it very interesting, and the first time I got to that was that when we did a year-long cooperations with the Choose Love movement,
Hmm.
Jesse Lewis, who got his mom, um, Jesse Lewis got shot at the Sandy Hook uh, elementary school. So he's one of the victims, and his mom created the Choose Love movement. And Choose Love movement doesn't talk about PTSD. They talk about PTSG, because they say you're not a syndrome, post-traumatic stress syndrome they talk about the post-traumatic growth.
Mm,
Because without trauma, there is no growth. You don't evolve if you're not challenged. You
hmm.
don't move further or step your next step or do whatever or change directions if you're not challenged.
Right,
So,
right.
so
And to bring us back to every day, just going when I walk the dog, I'll say to myself, I'm going to go an extra 100 steps, just going a little bit further every day. So it's really the same thing, challenging yourself.
yeah,
I'm not going to eat that extra donut. Just those little, one extra rep at the gym, 100 extra steps. I'm just going to go to that mailbox, go a little bit farther every day. Yes, if we don't challenge ourselves, then we atrophy, and you know this too, Natasha, health is wealth, and
yeah,
health is wealth, physical health and mental health. So
yeah,
we need to preserve our mental health and our physical health at all times. But that doesn't mean that we shirk from responsibility or try to avoid uh, things that test us and aggravate us, because we need to learn how to get over that. We need to learn to deal with boredom, aggravation, sadness, grief, loneliness. And most people really can't at all. They use all kinds of cigarettes, vapes, alcohol, drugs, food. They use anything, activity, to distract themselves from the reality of life. The way I see it, life every day is really a series of aggravations and annoyances. From the minute you get out of bed, oh gee, now I got to get out of bed. But and you have to get the coffee on, you have to this, you have to that, and it's just now I have to learn how to do this. If you want to have an interesting, happy life, you have to grow and learn, but it requires that you're constantly having to learn something new. And you're never on the mountaintop. People seem to have this idea, well, if I write that book, when I write that book, when I get this job, no, you're never on the mountaintop. There's always a new mountain, no matter where you scaled or what you did, whether it's money, whether it's relationship, whatever. There's a new mountain to scale. Once you get in a relationship, then here come the kids. Now there's a new mountain. Then there's dealing with the in-laws, a new mountain. Then there's dealing with people at work, a new mountain. So every day is a new challenge, and it's up to us as adults to say, you know what? I'm going to deal with this challenge. I'm going to grow and learn and be a useful human for other people and other animals.
yeah.
You
I agree with that. Um, I had I think I still have it on my Facebook page. It says you cannot influence the circumstances of what happens to you, but you can influence how you react to them.
Acceptance is the answer to all my problems today.
Yeah, or not even acceptance, go a step further, make it yours. Don't just say, "Oh, it's like that." No, take it and make it yours. Change direction, and try something new. Find other support that can help you. That's the point. Like what I also thought about when you were talking about kids and the challenges, um, how often, and I don't want to shame anybody or put it in a wrong context, but how often do you hear like there's a child misbehaving or not even misbehaving, louder, behaving differently than the rest, because what is misbehaving?
Mm-hmm.
Louder than and different than the rest. And then you get to, oh, he has ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cop out.
Mm-hmm. An excuse.
Yeah. Either that child is overstimulated or maybe it's bored. Vice versa. There is something that you can do to keep your child interested. And I know it's hard, especially coming from somebody who doesn't have children. But in my house, for instance, everything is allowed that is not forbidden. If I don't put away when kids are here, and if I don't put away what I don't want to be broken,
Mm-hmm.
it's my fault. It's not theirs
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't put it away. And I had friends' kids over when I bought the house, also almost 17 years ago, something like that. We had like summer party, first summer party in my house. And the kids were allowed to roam free. And yes, there was stuff that got broken and they did mischief and whatever. I was a child too. I would probably have joined in. But the fun part was they had so much fun and they were so happy and spent so much energy that they went home and went to bed. And their mom called me and said, "What did you do with my children?" because she wasn't there. And I said, nothing. And she said, they came home and they went to bed without argument.
Mm.
And those kids were at that time 10, 11, something like that. And I said, nothing. They just were allowed to be kids.
Mm.
They were not put in front of the TV, don't misbehave, don't blah, blah, blah. No, they were allowed to be outside, roam around, play with other kids, and just have fun the way that we grew up, right?
Mhm.
Like, I know we had mud fights, stuff like that. Today, when you say your kid is out in the woods and throwing mud at each other, probably somebody's gonna yell, get the ambulance and get them out of the water. That's I find restrictions for kids, especially these days, are so huge unless they grow
Mhm.
up in the country.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. Children who are raised on farms and yes, in the rural areas, they're very, very fortunate. Very fortunate. It's a whole
Well,
different
take the
dynamic.
first step. They walk barefoot.
Hmm.
So they're already grounding, they're already balancing their energy, right? While in towns, what are your shoes made of? What are the floors you're standing on? Like, how do you get rid of that energy buildup in you that when the energy cannot flow, you don't have the energy exchange with the earth, and all of a sudden people wonder why there's aggravation and
Hmm.
anger,
Hmm.
right? Well, there can be so much more free flow. Same with grown-ups. If you tend to be in your workspace and you get constantly angry, well, check in. What shoes do you wear? What is the floor you're standing on? Can you go outside and put your feet in the grass for a bit? Right. I these days go out in the ocean and do ocean walks and have my dog swim next to me while I walk through the water.
Hmm.
Uh, best benefit, I'm more balanced and my lymphatic system is working better.
Hmm.
Right. So all of that, but we never see that and nobody talks about it. Everybody just talks about the labels that you have to fill and the boxes you have to be put in.
All our roles. We have so many roles that we have to fill. Yes, good point. Good point.
Who's setting the rules?
Yeah.
Who's
Hmm.
the one who's setting the rules? Like what rules do we really need other than don't hurt anybody else?
Yes, that's a very good point. Yes.
Because society has rules that are not applicable in your family, I find. They don't have to be applicable in your family. As long as you're not harming anybody other, who cares?
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. And concern for living things is a very, very good precursor to you. That's how you tell a person's a good person when they're concerned about the welfare of other living things. So yes, in fact, my son and I were driving the other day, and he saw a turtle on the road, and he said we have to stop and help that turtle. So we did, and he got out and put the turtle into the grass, the ditch where the turtle was going, because otherwise, being on the road, he could have been run over.
How old is your
So
son?
yes, he's 42 now. He's outgrown.
Still a baby, right?
Yeah.
That's why
Well,
my mom always says she introduces, this is my baby. And I'm like, oh, I'm 50.
mhm,
It's okay.
that's right.
I still stay the baby.
Once a parent, always a parent, and you'll be a child as long as your parents are alive.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so if you were confused, like, sorry, my alarm's going off here. If you have people that are like parents that are stressed out, what do you tell them?
Well, they really need to step back and they have to the very first, the very first thing is to start looking at what's good with the child because what happens is we get so frustrated. They come home from school and the teacher's complaining and they did this and they did that. The number one thing is to step back and say, what are my child's good qualities? And write them all down and start focusing on them. Whatever we give attention to is what increases. So when we keep attending to the bad behavior, the unwanted behavior, whether it's bad or not, it's just unwanted and unused, just not useful behavior, then we get more of that. So when we focus on the good behavior, we get more of the good behavior. So the very first thing we have to do is step back and say, okay, my child is not 100% wrong, doing the wrong thing all the time. this is when he or she does these things good. So what can I do to increase the good things and minimize the things that aren't working for my child or for us in the house? So
Mm.
that's absolutely number one.
Mm.
And then a lot of times, rather than saying to ourselves when something happens that we don't like, rather than saying this shouldn't be happening, if, duh, it is happening. Whether it should or shouldn't is so totally out of the picture. It is happening, and how am I going to deal with it? And if I think it shouldn't be happening, what can I do so it doesn't happen again? So how can we handle this particular situation? Yeah, sure, it shouldn't be happening, but it is happening. So, we got to put on our big girl panties, big boy panties, and attend to the reality of the situation.
I often see it the way that it's a reflection. Basically, you get back what you put out.
Mm,
And how often do kids mimic the grown-ups, right? How
mm,
often are they 100% a mirror of mom or dad or a mixture
mm,
of both, right?
right. Yeah.
And that's a like I have a friend whose granddaughter is very much like her. They are outspoken and dry humor, but it's like the mini me next to her, right? So there's influence everywhere. And then the other part is that we are the sum of everything that came before us because memory these days is known as in every cell, so it's handed down from your ancestry, and you contain everything that came before you. All the memories, all everything is stored in your body. So you have affinities, and you can be like I'm more like my grandmother, while my mom is more like her father, and so things like that. Physically, I'm more like my father, but yeah, it's interesting when you look at the people in your life and you see those patterns come back, and that can be behavioral patterns, speech patterns, uh, movement patterns even are handed down. And then you have your person in front of you that is your influencer, and you have all these memories in your body, and all of a sudden your body goes like, "Oh, I know that. I do that now." Right? So that's the other part where you are actually reflecting on what is already in you
Mm.
as a child. And I would say oftentimes, and again, I don't want to put blame on because it's individual with every single person. But if you have a child that's acting up, maybe look at your own situation, how you're reacting when you're in the same situation.
Well, that's a really good point because someone made a post and said that her child melts down a lot, but it happens most of the time when the child is with her, with the mom. It rarely happens when child is with the dad. And I said, that's a gigantic clue. Obviously, dad's doing something or not doing something, and you need to emulate, you need to copy what dad's doing a little bit more. My suspicion is, usually a lot of times when children have these labels, parents pity them, and when they pity them, when you pity someone, boom, that's pretty much the end.
Mm-hmm.
Then they no longer even need to strive to be better because, well, I can't
There's no
do
chance.
that.
Yeah.
I have ADHD. I can't focus.
Mm-hmm.
I have this. I can't do that. So the child takes that label on themselves. And then the next thing you know, they're stuck in that display of inadequacy. And that's the precursor to depression and also to drug addiction, a lot of other things. When you start displaying inadequacy, oh, I can't do that. That's a really, really, really rough life.
Yeah.
But yes, so then we put labels on children, and if we pity them, they start to pity themselves, which makes things 10 times more difficult.
Mm. Nice. Not nice, but it's a great talk. It's a great topic, right? Um, so if you had any recommendations for somebody who is in that situation with a child not being what they think they should be, not that we want to do that, but if there's anything that you would recommend to people. Yes.
Definitely, you need to take parenting lessons. You need somebody to come and help you. You need to have a long discussion with exactly what's going on. some snippets of what's happening in your house, and you take parenting lessons. I offer one that's 4 weeks, but there's plenty of parenting lessons and courses around. So look around for what looks to you like it's going to help you, and get some help. Stop trying to do it yourself, and stop listening to people that you don't know. Start looking around and seeing who's got the results that you like in their children. Ask them what they do. Get some information. Stop trying to do it yourself, and stop being overwhelmed, because it is overwhelming. A misbehaving child is absolutely overwhelming. And a lot of times we have single parents, and it's really, really difficult. So get some help, get some information, do what you got to do, because the sooner you can get this problem solved, the better everybody will be. Your child will be happier, you will be happier.
Thank you so much. I will post your information on the bottom of the video in the description, so that if people want to reach out, they can reach you and can find you. And otherwise, I would say thank you so much for coming and sharing your knowledge and your expertise. And I hope you have good luck with your book and your courses, and lots of people find you, because I think there's need for parents all over to get the support that they need. And if it's just to open the eyes that it might be not so much the child, but maybe the parent that's part of the equation, and go from there.
Thanks,
So
Natasha.
thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Same here.
Thoughts are racing, spinning fast. Ideas flow but never last. Waves of wonder, thoughts untamed. Nothing ever stays the same. Rambling on, no straight lines. Welcome to my busy mind. Ideas fade, all the shine. Oh, welcome to my busy mind. Questions, answers, here they go. Digging deep, let's start the show. Questions, answers, here they go.